My name is Nico Lagan, and I'm too conservative for the conservatives. My co-host Rob Ambrose, not woke enough for the liberals. We are the Political Orphans. As always, make sure to like, and as always, we want to hear from you, so drop a comment in the comments below. Today we have two guests. First, we're talking with John Carpay, as in right now. And then at 8:30, we are joined by Chris Barber. Yes, the one and only, the owner of Big Red, the man himself that just received his sentence for what he did during the Freedom Convoy. He's going to join us at 8:30 to speak about his life since his sentencing. So let's start with John Carpay because he cannot wait to jump on the podcast once again.
And he's here to...
Yep. Yes. He's an early guy.
Yeah.
He likes to get shit done.
Yeah, you love.
He don't fuck around. So, the JCCF reached out to us to say that they had a new report called "Canada's Surrender of Sovereignty," a new world WHO health regulations undermine Canadians' democracy and Charter of Freedom, and this is what John is on the show to speak about. So let's welcome John to the show. Clap in the background. I should get a mixer with claps. Yay! Yeah. What's going on, John?
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, John.
We've got the elbows up crowd that's very upset when President Trump talks about Canada as a 51st state. Some people, they get very, very upset because that would be destruction of Canadian sovereignty if we became a 51st state. And yet these very same people are happy and eager to hand over our sovereignty to the World Health Organizations, which has a international health regulations, which Canada wants to... There's a few technicalities still that we haven't fully embraced it yet, but the plan of the federal government is to embrace Canadian obedience to the Director General of the World Health Organization, who would have the authority to declare a pandemic emergency and then order every country in the world to impose lockdowns, vaccine passports, travel restrictions, two-tier citizenship, second-class citizenship for people who are not injected, state health surveillance, et cetera, et cetera. But it's such a glaring contrast, right? When you have people who would scream up and down and scream and shout, jump up and down, light their hair on fire to protect Canadian sovereignty when they hear Trump talking about the 51st state. But if it's a World Health Organization that's going to dictate our health policies and tell us what to do whenever they declare, it's not our choice, but when they declare that there's a pandemic emergency, then we're supposed to cheerfully accept to be governed by foreign bureaucrats based in Geneva, Switzerland. So that's basically what's happening.
This is wild. And this is the first time I'm hearing about this, John.
You didn't hear about that? You never heard about that? Like, Trump said no to it. Trump and RFK said, screw you guys, we're not fucking doing this shit.
Okay, this is that same thing.
Well, unless correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what that's what my understanding was, so is that you're talking about the new... Yes, you're talking about the WHO's health regulations that are going to come if there's another pandemic and how to handle this pandemic. And this is what Trump, I believe was last month, basically said, you guys can suck one, we're not participating in it.
Is the WHO going around to each country and basically pitching it to them and saying, like, come on?
They already voted. The vote already happened. It was like last month or the month before. They already agreed to. The US was basically the only country that is part of the WHO that said, yeah, hell no, not happening. This is what I just want to make sure that's what you're talking about, John, right? That we're talking about the same thing here.
I think we're talking about the same thing, but my understanding is even before these international health regulations, supposedly they took into effect. Now, I'm nuancing it a little bit. I'm qualifying it a little bit because ultimately the World Health Organization has no police force and no army, no courts. And so if they declare in 6 months' time or 6 years' time or in 13 and a half years, if they declare that there is a pandemic emergency and they order every country in the world to impose lockdowns and to assault our rights and freedoms. And, you can't have Christmas dinner with your parents or with your kids, and you have to get injected with something that they say is safe and effective, et cetera, et cetera. If that happens in 6 months or 6 years or 23 years, the government of the day, whoever that is, they can obey or not obey those regulations. And if Canada, whoever happens to be governing Canada, Germany, Argentina, the United States, whoever is in charge at that moment in time, if they say to the World Health Organization, no, we're not doing this. Yeah, but I understand that my country signed up for this, a year ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago. I understand that we've agreed to this, but we're not doing it. We don't think that there's a pandemic emergency, or we agree with you that there's an emergency, but we have a better way of dealing with it. The World Health Organization can do nothing to prevent individual countries from doing as they deem best. So it's, on the one hand, it's kind of a binding agreement, but it's not really that binding.
And it's now we all know what's going to happen. In fact, this is why they sign these kind of agreements, right? To push to give them plausible deniability and to push away accountability, so they can say, "Oh, hey guys, look, we'd love to not be able to we'd love to not impose this lockdown, but what can we say? We signed a treaty with the WHO, and
yeah, exactly,
we obey treaties."
Exactly.
They're exactly doing it with immigration, right? Like it's quite clear in, say, the UK, Europe, and many countries in the West that people are getting really sick of, say, the an asylum system that's being abused and just immigration policy. And many people are saying, hey, we'd love to stop it, but there's nothing we can do. We signed up to, Refugee Treaty UN 14-1 back in 1982. So look, nothing we can do. And that's exactly why they do it.
Yeah, and that's the problem. So it's a fixable problem. It's a serious problem, but we shouldn't get too discouraged about it, because it really depends on the beliefs, attitudes, opinions, viewpoints of whoever happens to be holding power at a particular time. The premiers can also kibosh this, because Canada's constitution says, and a lot of people don't know this, but healthcare is exclusively the jurisdiction of the provinces. Exclusively. The federal government has authority over marine hospitals. I don't know what marine hospitals are. I don't know how many of them exist. Maybe that was only a term from 1867, but whatever marine hospitals are, that's who the federal government has authority over. All other healthcare is provincial jurisdiction. And so the federal government, it disrespects the Constitution by effectively imposing the Canada Health Act on the whole country. It's federal legislation. It was passed in 1984. It gives us an inefficient, unaccountable monopoly so that we spend lots of money and we get very poor outcomes. You've got countries like Japan with a good public healthcare system. It's healthcare available for all people, regardless of ability to pay, and they have no waiting lists. France, the United Kingdom, Germany, Australia, all these countries do better than Canada. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but the point is that a premier could say, look, we're not going to submit to the World Health Organization, and the federal government cannot, without the consent of the provinces, I'm not sure how they can sign up Canada to particular healthcare protocol when the Constitution of Canada says that the provinces are in charge of healthcare.
It's virtue signaling again. That's all it is. And for the people that are listening, we're talking about the Health Emergency Preparedness and Response. This is the actual name of the program, because that's the WHO Health Emergency Program. But that be, to answer your question, it's probably the same way as when Trump says that Canada called. Trump says that all the time. Is the same thing. The same person that voted yes on this is the same people that calls Trump Canada. You never heard Trump say that? Oh, Canada called, and it's the same person that voted for that. The question I do have for you, though, because it is true that they don't have any authority. They don't have any way to enforce authority, even if they had it. They don't have an army. Do you, considering what's going on with the RCMP right now, because you see like Pierre Poilievre finally put his balls on the other day and called them what they are, despicable. Now they're going after guns. They want to go after the ostriches in BC. They're going after the SNC-Lavalin is coming back, saying that, showing that they're not doing their job. They're hiring another 1,000 people, and God knows they're not going to be at the border protecting fentanyl. They're going to be trying to put that. It's just a task force that's being put in place for C2, C8, C9, C63. They need people to catch us, right? But do you think it's possible? And that's a question I asked David Creighton earlier. Do you think that it's possible that police officers will start saying no? So as much as the province can say no, like let's say Daniel Smith, for example, could say, I don't want this in my province and screw you, we're not doing it here. It really comes down to the police officers themselves, to the police force, both municipal and federal, to say, we're not enforcing this, just like the OPP is doing in Ontario for the gun grab. They're saying, no, you know what? We have better things to do. So you can pass all the legislations you want. We're not doing it. Is there a hope in your opinion? I try to see the good in things, but do you think there's hope that we could start seeing that happening?
This is a perfect example of why I often talk about the importance of having a culture where Canadians understand with their minds and appreciate with their hearts what our constitutional freedoms are. Because in a country where 90% of citizens, or even 80%, 60%, 70% of citizens firmly believe that government should be our servant and not our master, and that government has certain appropriate responsibilities to do things, but government does not have the authority to tell us what to think and to interfere in all the details of our lives and tell us how to live. And so when you've got a healthy culture, that trickles up into the police forces, whether it's the provincial police, which Ontario and Quebec have, but Alberta does not. And when we talk about, just a side tangent, when we talk about starting a provincial police force in Alberta, people say, oh, that's outrageous. That's a move towards separatism. We have to have the RCMP. We can't have Alberta Provincial Police because that's obviously is very un-Canadian and it's a move towards separatism. And I laugh because Ontario and Quebec both have provincial police, and Ontario is a proud Canadian partner, and Quebec most of the time as well. So it's not un-Canadian. Anyway, so yeah, there's hope. We saw this actually another time in Ontario when the government issued a health order that people could not leave home except if it was to go get groceries. They had a list of 10 different reasons, and they empowered the police to say the police could pull over anybody and say, where are you going? And why are you outside of your home? And why are you driving your car right now? That was what the health order provided the authority to the police to do. And the police all across Ontario, they announced publicly, the local police, the Kitchener Waterloo police force, the London police, et cetera, all the Windsor police, all these police forces, they said, we're not enforcing this. So the police had enough respect for citizens' freedoms to see that there's something wrong. Yeah.
So you think it's possible, basically, especially after what happened during COVID, right? Or during COVID, should I say?
But this is important. Okay, general rule, starting point is we should all obey the law. The three of us and everybody watching, listening, as a starting point, yes, we should obey the law. You can't just say, well, just obey or not obey, whatever I feel like. However, there has to also be, we have to think and not do the blind obedience that the Germans did in the 1930s, where, it's an order, so I have to obey the order. I have no choice. Well, no, some laws are fundamentally unjust. And it's important for police and lawyers and doctors and everybody else. You do not cooperate with a fundamentally unjust law. You do not obey it. And if you're a policeman, you don't enforce it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I think, you do see, it is heartening to see, as Nico said, gave the example of the gun grab and then the example you gave during COVID. So there is a precedent here for this kind of I guess, civil disobedience by police forces, which is heartening. And you'd like to see a culture of that kind of sort of thinking policing become part of mainstream policing in Canada, because you see over in the UK, and they are very much doing that blind obedience Gestapo shit, right? Just going and just, jackbooted thugs dragging grandmothers out of their homes at 2 a.m. because of mean tweets and stuff. And so it can happen here too, if we're not careful.
Well, and sometimes police want to take, part of human nature. Human nature is a mixture of good and evil. And everybody, myself included, we all struggle sometimes against laziness. And so there's a tendency in people to want to be lazy. We have to fight against that. Where it can become very tempting for police is that it's a lot easier to go knock on somebody's door and reprimand them about some, anti-immigration tweet or something that somebody thought was offensive, and to go, arrest these people, like you said, arrest some grandmother over a mean tweet. That's a lot easier than going after some grooming gang where you've got immigrants in Britain that are going after young girls, and they're having these gangs, and the police are not enforcing the law because they're terrified of being called racist. So that's a lot harder to go after rapists. It's a lot easier to go after people over something that they said on the internet.
That's a good point.
Did you hear about Bill C2 being untabled? I don't know if that's the proper term, but they're pulling it. So not only did they split...
They're slow tracking it. They still want to push it through, but they've said it's no longer a priority. Yeah, this is great news. This shows the pushback. This shows that, you guys and viewers and listeners and Canadians all over the country writing their MPs about Bill C2 in opposition to Bill C2. So they have taken out what should be the Strong Borders Act. They've taken out the parts about immigration and refugees. They've created a new bill called C12, and it's only about the borders and immigration and refugees. And they want to push C12 ahead. It's likely to get support from the Conservatives. And then if that passes, okay, and we get these changes, which for the most part are not, in my opinion, they're not objectionable. They still have C2, and they will remove from C2 the parts that have already passed through C12. The remainder, they're still going to try to push it, but they've put it on the back burner, and they're not going to push that hard for it.
Actually, I'm sorry to say that they removed it completely. Gary Apu, our Justice Minister, our Public Safety Minister, said that he was
Ananda Sangari. Can you say Ananda Sangari?
I can, but I refuse to say it because he sounds like Apu from The Simpsons, and I really dislike that man, so I'm calling him Gary Apu on purpose. But
he withdrew.
He said last week. It was either last week or at the beginning of the week that he said that they're taking it back completely, and they're going to work on it again. So I know what you're talking about. That was the first thing that they did. They said,
that was the first thing. Okay.
We're going to try to let it pass, but we're going to pass C12. We're going to put C12 back. That doesn't have as much bad stuff in it so that we can fast track that part, like you said. But last week he was saying, it was either last week or the beginning of the week, he was saying that he's completely removing it, saying that they're going to take it back. And yeah, it's just, that's what I meant. So can you imagine? That kind of gave me a bit of hope. I try to be hopeful. I try to see the good in things, but I was happy to see that Bill C2 might be no more, but I'm still scared of Bill C8, C9, and Bill C63 when it's retabled. Those ones worry the shit out of me. Yep.
C63 is probably worse than C9 and C8. I mean, they're all bad. I mean, C8 gives the federal cabinet minister the power to kick individual Canadians off the internet and phone usage altogether. You can be completely anonymized. And then C9 opens up the doors for way more prosecutions for hate speech. So those are very bad. But then C63, new powers to the Human Rights Commission to prosecute Canadians non-criminally over offensive speech. I mean, just horrific, because And they like to say, oh, well, it's not criminal law. You know, if you get prosecuted by the Human Rights Commission, you get found guilty, you got to pay a $50,000 fine, and you have to pay, you know, $20,000 to a complainant. I don't know how that works with the anonymous complainants. But, you know, as if that's okay because it's not criminal. Well, it's not true. It's not okay because it casts a whole chill over the entire country.
Yeah, and it you know, maybe it's not criminal, but yeah, obviously spending $50K is a massive penalty. But also, there's a reputation risk now, right? Because now, someone who wants to harm your business, if you are running the business, and many of these are businesses that are being gone after by the Human Rights Commission, now they can just say, "Oh, this owner's racist, and he's this, that, he's a bigot," and probably sink your business too. And people won't look into the facts. They'll just say, well, the Human Rights Commission found him guilty. That's good enough for me.
There is some pushback, though. I mean, some people will wear a Canadian human rights prosecution as a badge of honor, but they are the minority. And in fact, yeah, this is why businesses often settle, because the Ezra Levant wrote a book 10 years ago, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, and it was called Shakedown. And it was about how these human rights laws, even 20 years ago, were being abused by people. You know, you had Kimberly Nixon, who was a man who went through surgery, got his private parts cut off, claimed to be a woman, applied to volunteer as a volunteer counselor at a rape crisis counseling center in Vancouver, and a big guy too. Not that matters, but and ultimately it went through the Human Rights Tribunal ruled that the Rape Crisis Center had to take on Kimberly Nixon as a counselor. I mean, could you imagine you're a woman, you've just been raped, and the person you're going to get assigned to is Kimberly Nixon, a big dude with no private parts, that's going to be your source of whatever. I mean, it was just ridiculous. They took it to court. I think they were ultimately successful. I think it flip-flopped. It was one of these long cases, and then the BC Supreme Court ruled one way, and then the Court of Appeal ruled the other way, whatever. Ultimately, they had their funding cut off.
Yeah, I think they're shut down, right?
Transphobic, because they're not going to hire men to be counselors for women who've been raped.
And the fact of the matter is what kind of a man would even want to be like a counselor at a rape center? Almost certainly a man who's got his own agenda here. He's probably some creep getting off on it, right? So imagine you're a rape victim and you can tell talking to this guy that he's enjoying your story of probably the most traumatic thing in your life. There's nothing you can say about it because the Human Rights Commission will call you transphobic.
Yeah. It's so in Ezra's book Shakedown, there's a lot of these businesses that will settle. They'll write a $10,000 check, or maybe only a $2,000 check, a $5,000 check. It's cheaper and quicker to settle. You pay some money to the complainant. If you dig in your heels, like your legal bills are going to be $50,000 before you know it if you don't settle. And reputational damage, yes. Although I do see a shift in society where I think more and more Canadians are waking up. So if you are a business that's getting prosecuted by Human Rights Commission, not sure, it might hurt your business somewhat, but I don't think it would really hurt your business as badly as what it would have 20 years ago, because there's people waking up to the fact that, yeah, okay, you're getting prosecuted by Human Rights Commission. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you were racist or sexist or that you oppressed anybody or mistreated anybody.
I'd take it as a badge of honor. I'd make t-shirts. I'd make t-shirts and I'd happily wear them. But it reminds me of the case of, what was the name of that dude, Rob? I know we spoke about this before.
Yanev?
The dude, thank you, Jessica, the guy that calls himself Jessica Simpson, that started suing or going at Human Rights Commission and say, oh, they refused to shave my balls.
The waxing places, getting to wax his balls.
Yeah, and they all said no. And turned out that it came out that he was going around and giving them an out, saying, oh, if you give me that much, I'll stop the suit because it's free. it's free for somebody to go complain to the
they pay for your representation. So it's
but the person getting attacked, obviously is in trouble. Yeah.
Well, the Justice Center provided lawyers for some of these women. Many of them were immigrant women, and they were running a waxing business for women, Brazilian bikini wax for women. They were running that out of their home, and sometimes they had children present in the home. And then Yaniv, as he then was, now it's Jessica Simpson, Yaniv would phone up and say, I want a Brazilian bikini wax. And they would hear his voice and say, we don't do men. And he would say, well, I'm a woman. And then they would get a letter from the Human Rights Commission informing them that a complaint had been filed. There's one woman for whom we provided legal representation had contacted, and I forget that it was 17 law firms, 13, 11. It was more than 10 law firms that she had contacted. And they all said, no, we're not going to represent you because we're scared of being called transphobic. So this woman couldn't even get legal representation until she came to the Justice Center. And we don't care. You call us transphobic or homophobic, racist, hateful, misogynist. You call us whatever you want. We don't care. And so we provided representation to these women, and we won. Our lawyer had to cross-examine Yaniv, who admitted, after a whole bunch of cross-examination questions, he admitted that he still had his male private parts. He admitted that, but our lawyer had to cross-examine him very aggressively and in a very clever fashion to finally get this admission that yes, he did have his male parts.
We have Chris Barber in the back, and it's here in the
I don't want to keep Chris waiting.
But the question I had for you, you guys are representing Chris Barber, right?
Yeah. My thanks to all the people that have donated to the Justice Center. We have been paying for Chris Barber's criminal defense for the last 3.5 years. It's not over yet. We got a court hearing coming up in November. The government's trying to seize Big Red. So if you want to support the legal defense for Chris Barber, please donate to the Justice Center because we are paying for his criminal defense. So yes.
Hey, Chris.
Excellent.
Are you ready to come on the show? Because you could say hi to John Carpay, unless you want to avoid him, that you've seen him enough. But
like
here is, I don't think Chris Barber needs an introduction to our crowd here, Chris. But Chris Barber, what's going on?
I would never avoid John Carpay, man. He's
been
the guy behind.
Hey, I got to see Big Red for the first time in real life. I got to see Big Red in Medicine Hat. I was absolutely thrilled. I will never forget. As long as I live, it was amazing. And I got to go inside. It was actually the first time in my life in a big truck like that. But yeah, Big Red is amazing. And this was in Medicine Hat in early October. And Chris very kindly drove in all the way from Saskatchewan, drove 3 hours or something to get to Medicine Hat. So we met up there and we had a big meeting, 200 people in Medicine Hat. And it was just thrilling. And then when the meeting was all over, I was driving back to my hotel, and then it just so happened Chris was driving Big Red. So it's like I was like driving behind Big Red, beside Big Red, in front of Big Red. It was like, it's just amazing. So I'm really grateful for that experience, Chris. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, John. I got to say, when we were in Ottawa and we were in uncharted territory there, it was John that did send some lawyers to Ottawa to help us and assist us. And he's been there with the Justice Center right from day one. We couldn't be more thankful, especially me. I can't imagine my life right now if it wasn't for the Justice Center stepping up. So.
Nice.
All I want to say is, John, I think it's like your 8th or 10th time on the show. I've never seen you fangirl before.
He's fangirling about Big Red.
I love it. I absolutely love it. John, as always, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for what you're doing for Chris Barber as well.
Okay, have a great rest of the night. Talk to you guys later. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye, John.
We'll see you soon.
Mr. Chris Barber, what's going on, man?
Well, things are good. I just came in from outside working on some equipment out there. It's been a busy day out in the yard, so thanks for having me on, guys.
Nice. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Chris. You've met Nico before, but I think this is my first time meeting you. So welcome to the show, and I'm looking forward to this chat.
Pleased to be here, guys. Nice to meet you, Rob.
So basically, just so you know, normally the way it works is that I'm a Christian conservative and Rob's a liberal. So he's an anti-woke liberal. He's a common sense. He likes it. We call that a conservative nowadays, but yeah. he's a common sense liberal. So we normally, we normally try to focus on, on the 80% of things we actually agree on. We're trying to find common sense. The whole point's to have civil discourse, to be able to debate one another, debate the people in the comment section as well. So that's why I wanted to have you on here and not on my personal show, because I wanted Rob to be able to get introduced to you as well. And, we recorded for 2 hours, not last weekend with the one before. It was great chatting with you. It's very interesting. I'm impressed in the way you're handling this, because you're very calm. You're very relaxed about what happened. So do you want to tell us how it's been since your sentencing, and maybe remind the people that are listening, what is the sentence that you received? Because you're under house arrest right now, right?
I am, yes. So I'm fortunate enough to live on a farm, and I've been allowed to work through my my sentence. So I was given a 12 months house arrest and a 6 months curfew. I guess after that, I need to be home from 10 to 5. So for the next 12 months, I will be stationed at the farm here. I'm allowed to work. Finding a lot of, it's uncomfortable right now trying to work my work schedule around a schedule when it comes to, every week I have to plan out where I'm going and what time I'm going to be there, and where. In my trucking industry right now, I will get a phone call at 9 o'clock in the morning and I'll be gone in an hour, from there. So it's proving a little bit difficult, but Rob, I just got to say, I think what we've lost in this country in the last number of years is the ability to have a conversation between both sides. So I appreciate, 100%. Being there. I've noticed I've been able to find common ground with people on both sides of the fence in the last number of years. So I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's why Nico and I started this show to kind of reach that sort of unspoken majority that we both think is out there of people who, we still use the terms liberal and conservative. They still have some meaning, but I feel like a lot of those labels are the lines are getting blurred with that. They don't necessarily. I know for me personally, I still use the term, but there's a lot of things on the left that I really strongly disagree with, and a lot of things I see going on the right that I do agree with. So, I mean, it's nice to have this space where people can kind of get together, people with good intentions and good faith and common sense. And when you have those things, regardless of where you sit, as Nico said, you tend to find that common ground 80% of the time. And I think that's where the real productive conversations happen.
100%. I agree. Yeah. And that's what we've lost. My grandfather, he's been gone for 35 years now, but he used to go to the coffee shop every day and he would discuss politics with his, at that time he was a liberal. And I think people, it was shifted. So he would debate conservative people in the local coffee shop, and they would go home at the end of the day and look forward to the next conversation the next morning. And they were always best friends. And
we've
to
lost
this day,
that, yeah.
We have lost that, unfortunately. So I look forward to these conversations. So appreciate it.
We've lost it because we are being told from a young age now that you can't discuss money, religion, and politics, which every single person out there has an opinion on these three topics, and we're not supposed to talk about it, so that when it comes out, people are offended that somebody they've known their whole life, what? You support that guy? And that's the end of their relationship. Yet, I'd be curious to know, have a lot of liberals reached out to you during this whole process since the Freedom Convoy? Because I know that, and Rob will be the first one to admit this, because we've talked about this on the show before, that COVID was kind of an eye-opener for him. Like he did not see
it was kind of the turning point for me.
He didn't realize what was going on, unlike guys like me as well. And I know he's not the only one. I know there's a lot of liberals out there that can't consider themselves liberals anymore. But do they get in touch with you ever since the sentencing, ever since even you starting the court process, 2 years ago?
I've been able to find common ground with a number, maybe a handful, I guess. Not as many as I'd hope to, but I know that there's a lot of heads that have been turned in the last few years. I guess one of my favorite stories is a young lady from Montreal, Quebec. When we were in Ottawa, she said, I bet you don't have the balls to come and sit and have a conversation with me. So I said, I'm in Ottawa and I'm on court, so let's meet up and we'll have a coffee or a visit or a water. And I had my daughter there just to make sure that there's a security, a married guy showing up at a restaurant with a single lady. No, and she was far left. She's against me 100%. But we found common ground, and I think we sat there and visited for probably 2 hours, and we had an amazing conversation. And there's no way in the world she's ever going to think like I do. And I'll never think like she does. And at the end of the conversation, she said, "Can I just get a selfie?" So she took a photo of her and I together. And I said, "Be careful, what you do with that photo." And she posted it on social media, and her side ate her for lunch, supper, and breakfast.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely vile,
And I think you're kind of hitting on something there. And it's the same thing going on with the story about your father with his friends. And this is where I think social media really, really harms all of us is the common denominator between your father and his friends and the story you just told with that woman is you were with someone, you're face to face with them. And I think when you can see someone, you see them as a person, as a human being. And when we see someone as an avatar and an we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it as well. It's easy to forget that that's a real person there. And you just kind of slide into dogma and slogans, and you almost have to remind yourself not to do that. And most people are not going to be conscientious enough to even remind themselves that. They just go into that. So I think, to the extent that there is a solution to this sort of retreat into tribalism, I would say it's a lot of getting out and actually meeting people physically, talking to people physically. We're not doing that here, but it's the next best thing. You can still see the person, right? You still see that they're a human being. And I think you'd still have that same effect.
Man, I've got death threats. I've had people come at me with the most horrendous comments, wishing my family death and myself death and financial destruction, or, some of the most vile comments. And I'm like, I would literally I would buy you a beer and you and I could have a conversation. And I'm pretty sure, even if we didn't agree politically, we'd still find some common ground somewhere where, you've been taught to hate me because of what I stood for in February 2022. And I think, as much good as what we tried to do in Ottawa in that time, it's been overshadowed by government misinformation and media misinformation. And it's really sad to see we're at a state like that.
There's I want to take this comment because I want to give you a chance to answer it, but I also kind of want to chime in. But Erode is saying, I can't discuss politics with almost any liberals. They're way too brainwashed, parakeet for the mainstream media. Erode, it's on you to make it palatable. I do rough interviews. I was in San Francisco a couple of months ago to debate a lesbian mother. So I was flown down to the capital of wokeness of the world to debate a lesbian mother that told me that her son did not need a father, that two women could raise a boy. That's what I walked into with a leftist mediator. The guy that holds the show is leftist. To this day, this episode's been published 3 weeks ago. He still texts me screenshots because there's probably 50 to 100,000 views on that video now. And he just sends me comments. He's like, hey, look, it's just saying, I don't agree with Nico, but wow, what an eye-opener to have him on the show, to be polite, to be able to explain his views without attacking the other person. But that was on me. That was not on her, because from the get-go, when I told her that lesbian couples should not be allowed to raise children, she lost her shit on me. She just fucking lost it. But by the end, we went to have a drink, her and I. That doesn't mean I agree with her. That simply means that we're able to sit down and have a conversation, but at the same time, it's on you. As somebody that's more conservative, it's on you to chime in a way that actually resonates with them, because they're not possibly listening right now. Is that what you're noticing too, that you need to put water in your wine when I don't know, that you don't appear to me like being a wine drinker. Sorry. You're probably more of a beer drinker, but do you have to put water in your beer to have those conversations with liberals?
No, no, I don't. You know what? It's just about conversation, and it's just about meeting. Expressing your views and being acceptance of the other side of views. I'll never agree with a the liberal politics in the country, I guess, but doesn't mean I need to hate somebody because of it. I need to accept that and listen to that argument and then give my counter argument, and that's called debate. And I think that's like coming back to the fact we're lost in that right now. Nobody wants to do that anymore. You're either on one side of the fence or on the other, and there's so much hate, and I blame the government 100% for that. Media, government,
media, definitely.
Yeah, media, definitely. Yeah, 100%. They and when you look back in history, the government has found ways, and the media, to divide us culturally and East versus West, especially in Canada. And throughout COVID, they found a way to divide us in our own homes. And I think there's still families out there today that won't celebrate a holiday because of government misinformation throughout COVID there, and that's the sad part. My family's been affected with it. Almost every family I know has been affected with it. Where's the answers and the accountability that the government's lost in this, because they seem to have gotten away with it, unfortunately.
Let me rephrase my question. Sorry, Rob, before you do, because that's not what I meant to ask. Maybe I didn't frame it properly, but what I meant to ask you is, as people that are more conservatives, do you think that it's on us to reach out to the left and extend that olive branch? Because that's what I do all the time. That's literally what I did with Rob when I first approached him for this show. So I believe it's on us. Is that what you're seeing? That's what I meant. Is it up to us as people? Yes, I lost everything over COVID. I lost my career. I lost everything for what happened. That doesn't mean I'm going to hate the other side. That means I would have to hate guys like Rob because he didn't see a problem back then in what happened.
No, it is our job to reach out, I guess. I'm guilty of it too. Like Rob said before, like social media posts, when somebody comes at me with a horrendous comment, usually my response is usually something with humor. I'll mock, I'll ridicule. Yeah. Is that the way to do it? Probably not, but that's my personality, and I've always been that trolling atmosphere on social media. So, but any circumstances where I know that there's a chance for two people to see each other's side of the views, I will definitely take that.
Yeah, it seems like, and this is one of the things that sort of pushed me, I guess I say towards the center, but it's really towards the right, is this thing here where, I most conservatives or people on the right don't hate the other side. Whereas if you're on the left and you are, a true believer, so to speak, it seems like, the other side isn't just wrong. They're morally wrong. They're ethically wrong. And their character is suspect. And I mean, that just, for me personally, it's just, you kind of look at that and like, I don't identify with that at all. And even though I still, identify as a liberal, and I still hold some positions that are pretty firmly left, culturally speaking, and just in temperament, I just find myself finding a lot more common ground with the right these days. And it's, you said that you didn't hear that many or as many as you would have hoped from the left. I think over the next couple of years, I think you'll notice a trend happening. There is a lot of people like me on the left, even that aren't even as far as I am, where I'm at least speaking up against it now. I know that there's a lot of liberals who, they're like, well, I'll never be a conservative, so I just have to keep my mouth shut and go with the flow. And I think when woke collapses, and it will, I think you're going to see a really rapid change in the political left. At least that's my hope and my thoughts.
I think both sides are guilty of living in an echo chamber, right? Like, we see what we want to see, and we don't necessarily see the bad side of our side. But I think the Charlie Kirk episode a few months ago really woke a lot of people up to just how deranged. And you know what? And we didn't see any buildings burning after that. We didn't see riot police called. We seen calm and peace. And, the woke side, I guess, kind of got a little taste of their own medicine when they were losing their jobs and doing it, having done to them exactly what they've done to us for the last number of years. And that was really, sad to see, because it has to come to that point. But that was an eye opener too for me. That wow, we're in a bad place in this country right now. We've lost a lot of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's comparable, though. I'm gonna oppose what you're saying, because I did not deserve to lose my job. I'm healthier and more in shape, and I take better care of myself than those fatties, those obese people at my work that told me I needed to take a vaccine to protect them, basically. So I did not deserve what happened. If you're dumb enough to go online and start bragging that the murder of an individual is okay, you deserve to. If your employer sees that and they fire you, guess what? You shot yourself in the foot. I did not shoot myself in the foot by refusing that vaccine. Those people did. But I like the fact that you brought up an echo chamber, because I asked you this question on the mashup that we did a week and a half ago, and I'm going to ask you again on here. I am not a fan of Pierre Poilievre. I don't think he's a real leader. I think that guy's weak as baby poop, and God knows I have a 3-month-old right now, so there's a lot of weak, really liquid.
So you know baby poop.
we know baby poop here. So one of the questions that we have from Sylvie, one of our regulars, is saying, question for Chris, why do you still support Pierre Poilievre? What do you think his strengths are?
Man, you're gonna hit me with that one, aren't you? Here, I'm trying to. I was born and raised conservative. I'm not a PPC supporter, I guess, and I think Max's platform is very good. I have a problem with his hardcore followers, is what my issue was with the PPC, and the amount of hate that they portray on anybody that don't share their opinions. And I've always said that I'm a conservative. I vote in my district here, which is Grasslands in Saskatchewan. My MLA or MP is an amazing man. I stand behind him 100%. I have had my issues with Pierre Poilievre's leadership in this country, especially how he treated, the pandemic and a lot of the bills that come forward. And I've been vocal about that. I've been vocal on my own conservative government in Saskatchewan when it comes to my provincial. There could have been more done. We needed a leader that was going to stand up and put his foot down against the mandates, because we had nobody. It was us against them. The government was over here pushing more of this bullshit on regular Canadians, and we had no representation as far as I'm concerned. We had a lot of people that were standing by on the sideline saying, well, if the crowd goes this way, you know what, we'll support you. But the crowd didn't, because of the media misinformation. And there was hard feelings there. Of course there was. Has he tried to make up for that since? I think he's tried. I don't think it's been quite as much as it should have been, but I think he's tried. And for that, I will continue to vote for my local MP going forward, because I trust him. I know him personally. And, Pierre is the leader of that party. So, what else do you do there? Look at Convoy days when we ousted the leader of the conservative parties. That was our first casualty of that, when you want to think about that. And I was not a fan of him.
So I'm kind of hearing. I will listen to your answer. It reminds me of, I think it might have been Winston Churchill when he was asked about democracy, and he said democracy is the worst form of government there is, except for all the other ones that we've tried. And it kind of sounds like, if I don't know, I put words in your mouth, but if that's maybe kind of the way that you feel about Poilievre. And I mean, I definitely appreciate that. I can understand that kind of why someone would support Poilievre in that regard. So I have a question for you, though. So clearly it's kind of like, you're a big supporter of your local MP, and he's in the Conservative Party, so that's where your vote goes. And now that Poilievre is the leader of the Conservative Party, you will nominally support him. Once he lost his seat, if it were up to you, would you have had the party look for a new leader, or did you want to give Poilievre another shot?
That's a good question, Rob. I guess they played the politics right. Would I like somebody in there that was like a Donald Trumpish kind of person to run Canada? And I don't know where your politics lie, Rob, when it comes to Trump. I know he's got just as much hate as he does support.
I think part of me is still like that old liberal, like, fuck Trump. But there's another party that recognizes, regardless of how you might think of him in the grand scheme of presidents, I think he's probably the right guy for the job, the guy that we needed right now. Certainly ahead of Kamala. We have a regular guest on here, Jason from California, and what was he said? He was like, he said something about Kamala and Trump.
I can't remember, but he voted for the lesser of two evils, basically.
Yeah, it was something like, I hate that Trump won. The only thing I would have hated more is if Kamala had won, or something like that.
That's truth, I guess. Something. I don't. You know what? Like, we've been too ingrained in career politicians in this country.
Yes.
and we need away from that.
Yep.
We maybe need time limits on the amount of time they're elected, because this is what it is right now. Look at Jagmeet Singh. He's going to be sitting on his pension here when he retires, and what did he do for this country? And that same mentality. I think it's a job.
He did lead the NDP down to like losing half their seats, so I guess that's
a good thing. That's a good thing for us.
That's what I'm saying. That's a big. I don't think he meant to do it, but he still did it.
It's good,
and
it's
one of my biggest problem. But career politicians, you're bang on. This is my biggest problem with politicians is that they don't serve the people; they serve themselves. Public service should cost you something, but it should cost you something. You should have to leave something behind in order to go fight for the people, not fight for you. And again, that's another thing I don't like about Pierre Poilievre. He is a career politician. If there's something I don't like about Maxime Bernier, as much as I have a lot of respect for him, because he's the only politician that never changed his tune from the get-go. He was against the COVID lockdowns. He was against the vaccination from the get-go. He was against the WEF globalist agenda that we're seeing now. He's been talking about this forever. But I don't like the fact that he's a career politician. And we've had him on the show 2 or 3 times. Like, I don't have anything against him, but that bothers the hell out of me. I don't like career politicians. You shouldn't be there for the lifetime. And that's what I think the Americans, and I have a lot of American friends that voted for Trump, that's what they like. He came to fuck shit up. He came with his 2 fingers up.
In like 50 years or something.
Oh, yeah.
Chuck
100%.
Grassley and all those old fuckers, they can barely walk or move, and they're getting shuffled in to vote. It's ridiculous.
I have this conversation with my father. My father is in his 70s now, and he's part of our local. He's a counselor with our rural municipality. So he comes to me with certain things too, and he's like, "Well, the government has put this into place, and we need, as a rural municipality, we need to follow this order." And I'm like, him and I have had many conversations, some harsh ones. Who do you represent, Dad, when you're voting at that council and there's 12 members around that table? Who are you representing? The people that voted you in, the people in your district, or the government? Like, that's exactly what's happening in Ottawa right now, and in Regina with any politics. It's about the party, and I think we've lost. We've lost sight in that.
And I think that's almost inevitable once you get that career politician mindset. Once you've been there for 5, 10, 15 years, it's just human nature. I don't even think it's a character flaw. I don't think it means someone's a bad person or they don't care about their constituents. I think it's just almost inevitable. And that's why we need these term limits, to protect ourselves against our own nature, right? We are social animals. And if you have the same group of people working day in, day out together, they're going to get chummy. They're going to form cliques and groups. And, one of the arguments against it is like, oh, well, if we get rid of experienced politicians, they'll lose all this institutional knowledge. And I'm like, yeah, that's the problem, is they learn how to game the system after a couple of years. That's the knowledge we don't want them to have, right? Like they get chummy with the lobbyists and the big moneyed interests and
bureaucrats.
Yeah, exactly. It takes a little while to kind of figure that stuff out. If you had people in and out of there in 2 years, they wouldn't even figure out how to be corrupt in that time.
Go in there and do your job, the one that you were voted on by your constituents. And that's, I think, politics in this country and government in this policy is really pissing me off the last while, because that is what we are dealing with right now from our local levels. And that's what I tried to push this to anybody that asked me, Chris, what do we do next? What's the part of the movement? Everybody wants to go back to Ottawa every 6 months. And I'm like, Ottawa is the problem. Let's stay the hell out of Ottawa. Get involved with your local school council, your local city, your village, RM, whatever the hell it takes, but get involved in that. And we've seen that in different groups all across the country. And I think that's reassuring, seeing that people are actually doing it. I know personal friends that stood with me in Ottawa that are actually running for council right now, or running to be your MPs, what is the word for it? The council that represents that MP, that tells that MP what we want as a district.
Well,
I just want to take a comment here because of a comment that I made. So I just want to take this one. Will Alcock is saying, how to get Max being a career politician? He's had many jobs before. He's been in politics since 2006. That's literally almost 20 years. To me, that's a career politician. That's a career.
It doesn't matter.
Was 20 years. Yeah. What you did before at this point, you're a career politician.
If you're over 10 years in politics, you're a career politician.
Well, let me ask you this, Chris, because your father seems to be involved in politics on the local level, on the municipal level. Is that something you see for yourself after your house arrest is done?
I will. My grandfather was a local counselor for our RM, and my father's been there for, probably 40 years. I will probably take over my father's position if I'm elected by the people that I would represent. I think that's the extent to it. I always say I'm not really a politician. I'm more of a critic, I guess. There's a my social media past would not do me well when it comes to politics, I guess, because I'm very vocal and I say what's on my mind, and sometimes that really makes a lot of people mad. But I am who I am, and I'm not going to change that.
You mentioned the focus on local politics, and I mean that's where you get far more bang for your buck. That's where you can actually make real change. Far easier than if you becoming an MP, because even if you get there, if you get elected to go to Ottawa, then now you're just a cog in the machine, and your interests are to serve the party. And I think the left has actually figured that out in the last 10 or 15 or 20 years, especially down in the States. And I think that's why you see a lot of seemingly insane policies being instituted, like in schools and stuff, where they have these insane policies where they're putting boys into girls' locker rooms and boys into girls' sports, and it's because the left figured out, I think 15, 20 years ago, that's where you make real changes on the local level. And they packed the school boards, they packed the city councils, and so you can see that it works, and there's no reason it can't work on the other side, the other way either.
100%, I agree.
Now, that being said, we're running out of time, but I want to ask you one more question, because you were mentioning last week, and you mentioned it over text today when we were talking earlier, that you and Tamara Lynch are recording a podcast every Thursday, which I'm fucking happy that you guys are talking, because like it or not, you guys are seen as freedom leaders in Canada. So I'm happy that you kept your big boy pants on and are still going to be the voice. We need voices like yours, no questions about it. And you guys are started a podcast. So what's the goal of this podcast? Is it to criticize the government? Is it to remind people that Bill C2, C8, C9, C6, Bill C63 are coming and we need to wake the fuck up? What's the plan with that podcast?
I think, well, the podcast, it's just a local podcast. We're just doing it on Facebook, and we're streaming it to X and TikTok. Rumble will eventually have a page. We have a thing on YouTube as well. It's called House Arrest, and it's with Tamara and Chris. And we're just going to have some fun. Right now, the main goal of this is to tell our story. There's a lot of people out there that don't know what happened in Ottawa and how the government message to Canadians to hate this certain group of blue collar Canadians who decided to stand against government overreach. And our goal right now is to have that conversation with Canadians, involve everybody in it, and just kind of speak our truths right now. And as the thing grows, we're probably going to move on from that. Of course, tomorrow night's episode, I'm excited to say, we're going to host Brian Peckford, the last living signature of the Charter of Rights and Canadian freedoms. So we're excited. Brian stood with us in Ottawa, and he was very vocal. I was just telling my son today in the shop, and I said, like those old presidential speeches back in the day, like the Roosevelt speeches and all that, that is what it's like to listen to Brian Peckford speak. He holds a room. He's so educated and well-spoken, and you just sit there and you listen in awe. And I'm super excited to hear from Brian tomorrow night. House Arrest -18 on YouTube. Give it a follow if you can. We're going to be on 6 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. Tamara is the one that set all this stuff up, and I just said, we're on house arrest, so let's do something with it. And like you said, Nico, it's probably going to move somewhere else, and we'll be able to get into more discussions. But right now, our goal is to have that conversation with people, tell our story, get other people involved that were in Ottawa, like the truckers, the grandmothers, the grandfathers, all those people, because there was 500,000 people that stood in Ottawa there, and each one of them has a story to tell, and we plan to tell those stories through this podcast over the next coming months.
Nice. I think who was it? Bristles Tube had asked, where do you find your podcast, Chris? Is that on Spotify and
YouTube? You said YouTube, right?
Okay,
YouTube, Facebook.
House Arrest -18. My Big Red Chris Barber official on Facebook will have it. Freedom Convoy 2022 Facebook page will have it on it. Tamara Litch's ex, my ex, Chris Barber 1975, I believe, on X. We'll put it on the Big Red account on TikTok if anybody follows me on there. But we're working on boosting this a little bit. We've had a couple big people reach out to us and say, hey, we can help you produce that or host it, or kind of monitor, like make sure we're on schedule and we have a set, focused on what we're going to talk about. So we're looking forward to that. I think Trish Woods, legendary producer Trish Woods, media personality, is going to help us host tomorrow night. Nice. Rodney Palmer, which is another huge, he used to be on mainstream media all the time, foreign correspondent. He's an amazing gentleman too. He speaks very highly. He was in Ottawa and he did a lot of reporting on Ottawa and countered that media narrative of what they were saying. So that was nice. We got a lot of people on our side here. I look forward to tomorrow night. It's going to be awesome.
Nice. Should be fun.
Good luck. And I got to say before we finish that I absolutely love the video. I think you posted today about not calling the cops if you have a home intruder.
That was a little while ago, digging the hole in the back. Every now and then
it came up on my feed today.
Yeah, today was a good day. We were out playing with antique tractors and cleaning the yard up, getting ready for winter. And my son and I worked all day. So, my nice. Fingers are still greasy under the nail. So it was a good day.
Nice.
Well, thanks again for everything that you do, Chris. Thanks for what you did. Thanks for what you're going to continue to do. And best of luck for your show. But I definitely want to have you back when it makes sense to have you back. We like to have friends of the show that we bring back, like John Carpay, for example. We're bringing back all the time. I know you don't like him, but we actually do. So.
Anytime you guys want me on, you just reach out, Nico. You get my contact. It's nice to see you again. Rob, pleasure to meet you. Hopefully,
yeah, you too, Chris.
Conversation. So
appreciate it. Thanks for the time, sir.
Thanks, guys.
Enjoy your day. Bye.
Thanks, you do.
There you have it.
Yep. Cool guy. I like him.
And he's a big boy. He's a massive dude. You can't really tell right on camera, but supposedly that guy's a bear of a man. He's just very polite, very well spoken. He's very calm. So yeah. And John Carpay, did you see John Carpay fangirl?
Oh yeah,
I've never seen that before.
Big Red. You can just picture him like in it, like sitting, being like vroom, vroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you have it, man.
Yeah. No. Good. Yeah. No. Good show, guys. Joe. What Joe says? When did the show get cut down to an hour? We did make that decision a couple weeks ago. Yeah. It's designed to help with the algorithm, and it actually has helped quite a bit. I guess 2 hours was too much for YouTube. We see in the numbers, it's made a big difference
for the people too. That's what I was explaining to Wise Guy. He reached out to me by email. We talk every now and then. And that's what I was saying. It's not only for the algorithm, but new people don't want to watch a 2-hour show of two boneheads they don't know. An hour, that's debatable. We can sell that.
Yeah. If there's any major like special events, special news, we're still going to jump on those and do those longer as well, of course. Other than that, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. We weren't able to take as many comments as we normally do, just because we basically had guests the whole time. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the guests we had there. If as Bristol says, everyone start showing this show everywhere. It's an emergency. Share the show. Yes, listen to Bristles too, guys.
He sounds like you. It's very repetitive. Everyone starts sharing this show everywhere.
Everyone, stop what you're doing. Share the
that
show.
Is a Rob approved message.
Yeah, redundancy. Yeah, I'm rubbing off on them. All right, guys, we will catch you tomorrow night for the Thursday night show, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Have a good day, guys. You're rubbing on.